Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Mending Minds, where we're on class number 3, where we're going to be talking about the science behind gratitude. For those that missed the first class, my name is Nick Tennant. I am a health educator in the Jacksonville Employee Wellness Office. So thank you for coming back and tuning in, where you heard from my coworker and friend last week, Karan Robinson, talk about what makes us happy, the things that happy, what we can do to and kind of enrich our lives with happiness. Things that we may think make us happy actually do not. Things like money and material things. And really, when we talk about money, when she used the caveat at the end that when money can make us happy when we give it away, when we're grateful for it and give it to someone else. So that's an act of gratitude. So we'll we'll definitely dive deeper into this subject of gratitude, as my coworker Karan touched on it last week. So when we look at today's class, we're going to gain a better understanding of what gratitude is and what it means. So there's a couple components to gratitude that we'll go over and give you kind of a full encompassing definition. So when I talk about gratitude, you have a better understanding of what exactly I'm referring to. We're also going to look at all the research behind gratitude. I know Karan shared a few studies with you, and we're going to take a deeper dive into that research of what gratitude does for us and how it can enrich our lives and make us healthier and happier, all things that we want to have. We're going to learn how to some daily gratitude things that we can do on our own. So Karan gave you an assignment. So remember, if you have not turned that in, to go ahead and turn in that worksheet when you get a chance. It's about journaling and just coloring in your circles each day that you journal. Make sure to turn that in. That is going to be your attendance for last class. So if you have not done that, just please make sure just send that in whenever you get a chance. And then you're going to learn about some other gratitude exercises that I'm going to have you do on your own that you're not going to have to turn in. And one of those things is to continue writing in that gratitude journal. But I'm going to go over some of the different topics I want you to include in that gratitude journal. So where the first one, we were kind of giving you open-ended, just write some things down that you're thankful for. I'm going to give you some suggestions of where to actually what to actually include in that gratitude journal. So Karan will drop in the chat where you can send in your worksheets. If you haven't done so already, she'll drop that email into that. If you did not get the form, you should be on the email list, but we can include it on the next email in case you did not get that worksheet. We'll include it in our next email out. So again, at the end of this presentation, you'll receive a copy of the presentation, a link to the recording of the presentation, as well as a link to the complete the post-class assessment, which again just counts towards your attendance. But we'll also include that worksheet in this week's email as well. All right, so without further ado, I thank you for your patience, and we'll get started on gratitude. So what is gratitude? Well, Robert Eamon speaks about two components of gratitude and what each of those actually mean. So the first component he speaks about is appreciation. Now, this is something that is valuable to you, but that does not have to do with its monetary worth. Okay, something that's valuable to you, but not necessarily because it's worth a lot of money. So that doesn't mean that it can't have significant monetary worth, only that that's not the only reason that you appreciate it, or not really the sole or the primary reason that you are appreciative of that. So you recognize that the value, what it is, and what it means to you. So Eamon states that it's an affirmation of goodness. We affirm that there are good things in this world, gifts and benefits that we have received. Okay, so that's the first component of gratitude, that appreciation. The second component of gratitude is this idea of gratis, or something that is freely given to you. So Emmons explains that we recognize that the sources of this goodness are outside of ourselves. So we acknowledge that other people gave us many gifts, big and small, to help us achieve the goodness in our lives. So if we look at gratitude as a whole in total, it's affirming that we receive something, whether it be a tangible item, it could be an act, it could be a gesture someone did, it could be a moment that we've shared, that we appreciate outside of its monetary value, and that we acknowledge that this goodness came from somewhere outside of ourselves. All right, so it's those two components. When I speak about gratitude, it's really taking those two components and combining those. And that's what I mean when I talk about gratitude. Now, Angela Arian, who wrote Living in Gratitude, said this: gratitude is a feeling that spontaneously emerges from within. However, it is not simply an emotional response. It is also a choice we make. We can choose to be grateful, or we can choose to be ungrateful, to take our gifts and blessings for granted. As a choice, gratitude is an attitude or a disposition. I'm going to say that one more time. One more time. Gratitude is a feeling that spontaneously emerges from within. However, it is not simply an emotional response. It is also a choice we make. We can choose to be grateful, or we can choose to be ungrateful, to take our gifts and blessings for granted. As a choice, gratitude is an attitude or a disposition. So remember, gratitude is a choice we can make. So if you heard me in the first class talk about our negative thought process that we have, how we get, sometimes we can get mired into that, that thought process where we just ruminate in our negative thoughts and think about things that we may have done wrong, or always have this negative connotation, or be down on ourselves. Well, that gratitude is the same way. We have the power to choose things that we can be grateful for, and we can choose to be ungrateful and only look at the bad side of things. So when we look at Dr. David Steindl Ross, he says gratefulness is the key to a happy life that we hold in our hands. Because if we are not grateful, then no matter how much we have, we will not be happy, because we will always want to have something else or something more. And you heard Karan touch on this in the last class, this idea of hedonic adaptation, where we tend to grow used to or adapt to our positive and negative experiences. So instead of just being satisfied with what we have, we always are striving for more, striving for the next best thing. So our happiness and our satisfaction are not permanent. So if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, we like to call this the hedonic treadmill. So basically, think about something that you desire, right? Something that you really want. And let's just, for instance, say it's the new iPhone, right? You're desiring that new iPhone. So what do? You're going to strive to get it, right? You're going to set aside some money from each paycheck. You're going to save up for it. You're eventually going to purchase it and finally get it in your hands. And what happens those first couple of days, maybe weeks, maybe up to a month? We're enjoying it, right? We think it's the coolest thing in the world. We're showing off all these new specs. Look at the camera. It's awesome. You're enjoying every little bit of it. But over time, you grow used to it, right? For those of us that have older phones, right, it's not as exciting as the first day we got it. And then what happens? We desire more. And that's the reason why you see new iPhones every year. There's not a lot of changes in each one, but companies know that we grow used to our things, and they put stuff out there and say, hey, if you don't have this, you're missing out. They know we're going to desire for more. So we get stuck in this hedonic treadmill where we're just striving for the next best thing, or desiring the next best thing, or what can I have more? So the idea and how to really get out of this hedonic treadmill is to try to savor those moments, right? And that's the act of stepping outside of an experience to review it and appreciate it. That helps us keep us in the moment. So living in that present moment, being fully immersed in the present moment, that mindfulness we talk about, that increases our appreciation of the moments or of the things that we have. It also boosts our mood and increases our gratitude. So you heard Karan touch on how gratitude and being grateful can help our happiness level, right? So when we talk about how to stave off the hedonic adaptation, where we get stuck and we in this loop of endless cycle of always wanting the next best thing, and the stuff we have never being good enough, we want to try to savor our moments more, savor the things that we do have. So to increase our savoring, well, Paul et al. Completed a study to look at how savoring can increase our happiness and what we can do to actually increase our savoring or savor more. And what they found is, well, big surprise, it's staying in that present moment. That increases our savoring. So being mindful, living in the now, and valuing the moments you have day to day. Also sharing those moments with others, either at the time or later. So what's great about this is, if you're sharing a moment with friends or loved ones, you're immersed in that moment with them. You're sharing that moment with them, and you have a connection with those people. But let's say you have a moment, let's with a stranger or on your own, that you really truly appreciate. Even if you share that moment with someone that is not there, you go home and tell a loved one or a friend, you share that moment, that increases your savoring. You appreciate that moment more, and it makes you happier. Also thinking about how lucky you are. We are our own biggest critics, right? So tend to be down on ourselves, things that we don't deserve some of the good things in life all the time. But thinking about how lucky you are, thinking about that you do deserve this, being proud of yourself, laughing. Think about the times that you have had a full belly laugh, right? Where you are just fully engaged in laughter. You're not thinking about the future. You're not worrying about things that may happen in the future. You're not thinking about, oh, what about these embarrassing things I did in the past? When you're laughing, you're fully engaged in that present moment and you're enjoying it. So those are things that can increase our savoring. Now, there are also things that can decrease our savoring. So staying in the present moment increases our savoring. Obviously, thinking about the past or the future decreases our savoring. If we're always living elsewhere instead of in the present moment, we tend to have a lot of angst. We tend to have build up that anxiety, right, about things that may or may not happen, but our minds will think of the worst case scenario. Also thinking about how a moment will come to an end, right? So if you're having a great time, but you're thinking, well, this is going to end anyway, right? I'm just going to come to an end eventually. It's ironic that we think that way when we're in positive situations, but in negative times, when we get really down, we think there's no end in sight, right? It's never going to end. But when we're enjoying ourselves, we think, okay, this is probably going to come to an end anyway. Being let down by our expectations, that's another way to decrease our savorings. Remember from the first class, setting lofty or unattainable expectations or that need to always be perfect. That's a source of internal stress and a big source of internal stress. So that causes us to have less savoring or decreases our ability to savor the moments that we're in. Thinking about how it will never be this good again, or telling yourself you don't deserve this, but you do. Everyone deserves to be happy. You enjoy it, deserve to have these positive experiences, and you deserve to savor them. If you look at the things that decreases our savoring, these are all things that we control. So these are all things we have the power to control. It's our thought process, it's how we talk to ourselves. So looking at the way we have these internal thought processes and the way we talk to ourselves can really lead to an increase in savoring as long as we start using more positive words. And I just touch on this again. So Karan shared a gratitude study with you before where participants were selected into one of three groups, either a gratitude group, a hassle group, or an events group, right? And each participant were asked to write about 5 things that occurred for them. So the gratitude group wrote about five things that they were grateful for. Hassle, 5 negative events. And the events group just wrote about 5 events that occurred, neither negative or positive. And again, what the results from that study were is those that were called the good things. So those that wrote down things that they were grateful for, had a higher life satisfaction, had more optimism for the upcoming week, had greater physical symptoms, right? So less stress, they're not mired in that stress response, and had at least an extra hour of physical activity of each week of exercise. So that's a significant improvement just from the gratitude group. So you would think a lot of this comes from writing down things that you're grateful for, and that is true. But what also is true is that what the researchers found is that those in the gratitude group use more positive emotion words, or we words, and they use less negative emotion words. So the real mental health benefits came from using less of those negative emotion words. Now, so what we want to do here is, again, not think about the worst case scenario, not think what's going to happen or how did I mess this up, or how, you always get mired in that and it's just a snowball effect. So focus on the positive and don't get stuck ruminating on those negatives, like envy, like resentment, like holding on to that emotional baggage. And so that leads me to a story I want to tell you on. And I just want you to take a few deep breaths, get yourself in a relaxed state. And I want you to just close your eyes as I read this story to you. And I want you to envision yourself as the students in this class, in this story. A high school teacher told her students to bring to school a clear bag and a sack of potatoes. The students are asked to think about all the people that have wronged them, every person they have judged, every person they could not accept. And the names of these people were to be each written on a potato and put in the bag. So think about all the people that wronged you, all the people that you hold resentment for, or a grudge, or you couldn't accept, and you wrote a name on their potato. On each one had their individual potato, and you put it in the bag. Now, most students had bags that were full and overflowing. They were instructed to carry the bag everywhere with them for 1 week, including taking it into their bed at night, and they were never to leave the bag out of their sight. By the end of the week, the students were sick to death of the bag of potatoes. It was annoying having to lug it everywhere. The potatoes started to fester and go moldy and stinky. The bags were heavy and awkward. They weighed the students down and made them miserable. The teacher told the students the significance of carrying the potatoes. It was a way to understand the price we pay for holding on to our resentments. Fortunately, at the end of the week, the teacher told each student that if they forgave the person whose name is inscribed on the potato, they can remove it from the bag. The lightness, relief, and freedom at doing so was only a taste of what they could feel of letting go of the resentments that each potato represented. However, the teacher then asked the students if during that week there was anyone new who transgressed against them, or anyone new that they were holding a grudge against. Reluctantly, the students started to panic and admitted that there were others and realized this bag of potatoes would get full once again. They asked the teacher, if we continue like this, wouldn't there always be more potatoes at the end of each week? The teacher responded, yes, as long as people speak or act against you in some way, you will always have potatoes. The students groaned, we can never control what others do, so what good is this? Then the teacher told them the hidden meaning behind the game they played. If the potatoes are the negative feelings, then the bag is that which allows you to hold on to those negative feelings. Let go of the bag and you can let go of this burden. The teacher said this is exactly the situation when you carry hatred for somebody else inside of your heart. The stench of the hatred will contaminate your heart and you will carry it with you wherever you go. If you cannot tolerate the smell of rotten potatoes for just 1 week, especially those of you who had plenty of potatoes to carry, can you imagine what it is like to have the stench of hatred in your heart for a lifetime? So I love this story. It goes back. It goes back all the way to ancient China, but it just really gives a great analogy to what we carry around. We talk about forgiveness is really, we think of it for the other person, but it's for ourselves. It's for our own well-being. So not carrying that resentment around, not thinking of all the bad things or the bad stuff that people have done. Right? We're carrying that around and it's detrimental to our health. So think about those people in your life that have transgressed against you or people that you may hold a grudge against and how you can forgive them and how you can let that go for yourself. Right? And it's about being more grateful. So when we look at a study here in gratitude in healthcare, well, 62% of nurses reported that a greater burnout and or feeling sad before the pandemic, since before the pandemic. So we already know that burnout and feeling stressed and being emotional, exhausted and feeling detached or alienated was already a problem when we talk about healthcare. But since the pandemic, it's only exacerbated that issue. So research shows that creating a workplace centered around gratitude can have those positive impacts and build that resilience we talked about in the first class. Gratitude can improve our stress levels, our job satisfaction, our happiness, and our overall well-being. So when we're talking about it in the workplace, we're less likely to have to take as many sick days. Right? You ever had those sick days where you just needed that day because you were so stressed, you're so exhausted, you just can't do it. Right? If we create a workplace centered around that gratitude, where overall our well-being increases. So here's a study of over 1,500 healthcare workers on emotional exhaustion. And they had the participants write a letter of gratitude to someone in a 7-minute span. So over 7 minutes, they had an assignment. They just got a piece of paper and were to write a letter of gratitude to someone in their life. And after 7 minutes, participants reported a significant decrease in emotional burnout up to a week later. And it found it easier to find things to be grateful for. So only a 7-minute exercise and up to a week later, these people, these participants had a decreased emotional burnout and found that they could see the positives in their day-to-day lives better. The next study, a study of 5 hospitals in China, were asked to journal twice per week for a month. Now they could journal about anything they wanted to. It wasn't necessarily just a gratitude journal. So they could write things that they were grateful for. They could write about their hassles, or they could just, write about anything they thought of. It didn't have to be anything specific at all, or they didn't have to write in their journal. They were asked to, but if they chose not to, that was included in the study. Now, those that recalled things for which they were grateful for were significantly less stressed and depressed up to 3 months after the study ended. So just writing down and journaling twice per week for 1 month had 3 months of effect down the line for these staff members in the hospitals. That's significant results. If we look at another study where participants were asked to write a letter to someone who was kind to them or showed them acts of kindness, and then took it a step further and delivered it to that person, right? So they were asked to write a letter to someone they were grateful for and then deliver it to them. And what we find out is you can see the happiness level of the participants. So right after they completed, obviously very high right after that. But even up to 6 months later, their happiness level was increased just from writing one letter of gratitude to someone and delivering it to that person. Right? That's great. That's empowering. So being thankful to be happier and healthier, that's what we want to do. So more research is emerging that even showing that gratitude or expressing that thanks, that can lead us to a happier and healthier lifestyle. Writing down what you're grateful for also can lead to better sleep. Try journaling right before you go to bed. Instead of, when a lot of times when we ruminate in those negative thoughts, it's right when we're alone with our thoughts right before we go to bed, right? We're trying to fall asleep and our mind is just racing to one thought to the other. So try recalling those things you're grateful for right before you go to bed. It can actually lead to a better sleep. The more gratitude you express, the more empathy you may be capable of showing. So they found that if you are able to express that gratitude, you're actually able to see other people's point of views better. You can see and appreciate their struggles better. So you're better about showing and displaying that empathy that a lot of people need. Also, being grateful can lead to stronger and healthier relationships. So think about it. If you're able to express your gratitude more, you're able to enrich those relationships that you currently have. So let's be mindful in our gratitude. How often do we think someone should thank us for something and we don't receive that appreciation? How does that make you feel? Right? If you go out of your way, you do something really, you feel like you did a lot of extra work for someone and they just didn't even say thank you. Right? It makes us feel pretty bad. But what about when people do appreciate us and show us either through their words or actions? Right? They make a big deal about what we did for them. We feel a lot better, right? We get that big smile inside of ourselves, and we feel great about everything. We probably don't think of it, but we also are probably guilty of not expressing our gratitude enough to other people. So to combat that, let's be more mindful in our gratitude. Start by being really present in the conversations and interactions that we have with one another. So don't just say thank you out of habit or reflex, right? If you've gone out of your way and you say you're doing something for a coworker and you give it to them and you've done your work and then they just kind of say thank you. They don't even look up from what they're doing. You feel like I just did all that work and that's what I got. It was just a hasty thank you, right? So put in that effort. Did someone put in effort for you and you just said it out of reflex? So try to be attentive and mindful of what you're grateful for and what you're thankful for. Also, when you're in those conversations, listen to understand, not just reply. Remember to display that empathy. So rather than go ahead and start formulating your response of what you're going to say when someone's talking, actually try to take a moment to take in. You should be able to repeat what someone says to you back to them after they finish. If you can't, then you're probably not being fully attentive in that conversation. You're probably already formulating what your response is going to be. So that leads us to the second strategy, which is be attentive and being more mindful in our gratitude. So make sure you're not just saying thank you out of that reflex, right? But you truly mean it. So you want to take a moment to think about it. So you can usually tell when someone's genuine when they show you a genuine sign of appreciation. So in order to express this, take a second to understand and be fully aware of what you're grateful for. What did they do and why are you grateful for it? It's okay expressing that to another person. And remember that to reap the full benefits of gratitude, it is a gradual process. So it's important to constantly put it into practice. Find at least one thing for which you are thankful for each day and truly savor that moment. Why are you grateful? And did you share that gratefulness or that appreciation or that gratitude with another person or persons? Right? Sharing that gratitude can go a long way. Which brings us to our first exercise I'd like you to try at home. You start a gratitude jar. So find an empty box or jar or any type of container you would like to use. You can decorate it however you want to do. And then for at least the next month, write down at least one thing each day in which you are grateful for on a slip of paper and put it into the jar. So it can be a person, you can be thankful for an individual or an act that they may have done. You could be thankful for a place. You could be thankful that you have a place to live. You can be a feeling that you had in that day. It could be a moment. It could be something as simple as, I am thankful for that I walked outside and the sun was shining and it felt great on my skin. It can be big or small. Just write at least one thing down and take a moment to think about one thing you're thankful for each day and write it in that jar. And over time, what you'll see is that you have a jar full of things to be thankful for in life. So those moments when you get down, you get stuck in those ruminating thoughts, grab those slip of papers out of the jar and read the things that you're grateful for. Right. And as you continue, if you continue to do this, you'll see that you're going to need a lot of jars. There are literally there's things that you can be thankful for throughout each day. Right. So start that gratitude jar. Also, write a letter of gratitude. Write a letter of gratitude to someone in your life, just like they had the participants do. I have done this out of the blue, so it's no prompt to anyone. So you just write a letter to someone in your life thanking them. So why are you grateful for them? What did they do? How did their acts impact your life positively or leave an impact on your life? And then deliver that letter to them. I can tell you it's overpowering experience. I mean, think about if someone wrote a letter to you unprompted, you didn't know it was coming, and you had a letter of gratitude to someone saying how much they meant to you and how what they've done in your life has left a positive impact. And even if you don't want to share it, let's say you don't feel comfortable sharing it with that person, still write it. So research does show that you can benefit from writing this letter, even if you don't feel comfortable sharing it. Be patient and remember that the effects of being grateful comes over practice. So it's gradual and it increases over time. And Karan shared that worksheet with you, which again, we'll share with you again in the follow-up email, but about keeping a daily gratitude journal, right? And this is something I want you to continue. You don't have to turn it in. So this is just going to be something that you keep on your own. Take 5 to 10 minutes each day and write about something or someone for which you're grateful for. And the key here is, remember, just don't write something to mark it off the box, right? So be mindful when you write. There are no right or wrong answers, but actually take time to savor this gratitude and why you're grateful for something. And I told you I had some suggestions of things I want you to write about. So that can be that first one, that first letter. That could be one of your first journal entries. Write about a person in your life that you're especially grateful for and why. I see in the chat that someone's received one of those letters and it still is affecting them today, years later. And I can attest to that too. I am also can say that. Or what is there about a challenge you're experiencing right now that you can be thankful for? So remember about building that resiliency, not seeing as those challenges as roadblocks, not seeing them as impediments. As we build our resiliency, we'll look at challenges as a way, as a positive learning experience. So what about a challenge you're facing currently that you can be thankful for and why? Or what are you taking for granted about your day to day that you can be thankful for? If you remember in the first class, I asked you to try to recall your morning, right? Even your morning cup of coffee and how much cream and sugar you put in it. So if you drink your coffee in the morning, maybe it's something as simple as that you take for granted every day, that you can have that morning pick me up, that morning cup of coffee that really gets you in the mood for the day. I love this one. List 5 people in your life who are hard to get along with and write down at least one quality for each of them that you're grateful for. We all have people in our lives that we just don't get along with, or we butt heads, or we just don't understand their points of view. But write down at least one quality that you like in that person. We have a lot of negativity. You see a lot of it on social media. Try to spread that gratitude and that positiveness on social media rather than, airing out the grievances instead. Or who has done something this week to help you or make your life easier, and how can you thank them? Right, Karan shared, it doesn't have to be monetary, as we saw with our gratitude components. It's something you appreciate outside of its monetary value. So simple things like writing that letter, that can be a great way to thank them. Speaking to someone, telling them they can that you are grateful for them and grateful to have them in your life. Look for different ways to implement gratitude in your life each and every day. And this is another exercise I want you to practice. If you ever are feeling down, you feel those times where you just feel super stressed out. So when you're dealing with that difficult emotion or situation, try softening your face and just smiling. Take a moment for yourself, take a deep breath and smile. This will tell your mind that you're doing okay, even if you're not feeling happy at that moment. It's not going to get you necessarily cure that ailment or fix that situation, but being stressed and anxious about it isn't going to fix it either. Right? So take a moment for yourself, take that deep breath, try smiling and being more positive. All right, looking ahead, you'll hear back from Quran next week, a week from today at noon, where we're talking about understanding our relationships. Don't forget to start or continue your gratitude journal. So if you haven't already started and you need that worksheet, we'll send it out to you. But keep up with that gratitude journal. You won't be asked to turn it in by any means. So you can be as sensitive as you want and as open as you want. It's just something I want you to keep on your own. And then write a letter of gratitude to someone else. I can tell you it is a great experience. We never know what's going to happen, so express that gratitude by all means. Also, complete the post-class assessment. There'll be a QR code on the next slide that you can use, but we'll also send out a link in the follow-up email. But please remember to complete those, as that counts as your attendance for each of the classes that we have. And again, you'll receive a copy of this presentation, and it is recorded, so you'll be able to view it online as well. All right, there's the QR code if you need it. Again, we will send out a link in the email as well, so you don't have to complete it right now. But I thank everyone for joining, and we'll hang around if there are any questions, but we look forward to seeing you again next week.